Okay, hi everyone. This lecture is called Togetherness, and I would really love to further advocate the potential of communication design as a catalyst for action, transformation, and invitation to play. Today, I prepared 3 different chapters for you, and I would like to really talk about the practice of performative design, as I call it, its methods, tools, and the research behind it. And of course, how all that connects with the multi-species togetherness. Let me introduce myself. I am Tereza Ruller. I'm Amsterdam-based communication designer and a co-founder of studio The Rodina. The Rodina in Czech language, it means family. So this is a small studio unit, it's a small, tiny family unit. At the end, there's Q&A. So whenever, just like to make it easier, please type in your question whenever it really comes to your mind. So then you can store all these questions in the Q&A app, as was mentioned, or just the Zoom chats. Just write it down, please. In the studio, we look at our projects from different perspectives. Every project we do, we think which areas it touches, and where do we want it to be? What kind of project are we working on right now? And for you, what you design now, that will shape your future, and you're in brackets, so that will shape the future ultimately, your future, hopefully. Yeah. Where is your project right now? Where do you want to have it? Where is your responsibility as designer? What do we all want to do, and how that contributes to society? Those are really big questions, huge ones. But this little diagram that you can see on the screen, let's clear it so you can see really all of those terms. It shares what's really important in the studio for me at the moment, but you can make your own diagram. You can try to have something very excellent, but at the same time experimental. That's, for example, quite exciting. Use your imagination, technology, but still be positioned in your context, in the time and space where you belong, right? Could be quite exciting to do these kind of projects. What I'm trying to say is everyone can make their own diagram as an exercise, and that would be quite interesting. What kind of values, what kind of highlights and keywords would you put into this? For us right now, it's about the future and how do we as designers contribute to society. Let's dive into these 3 chapters that I have for you. So let's talk about how can design lead towards transformation of self, but of course, potentially also to the social change. How do we invite alienated audience to share and experience situations as active part of our design? We are designing those situations ultimately. My answer is, yeah, we can do it through performance in design, because design has capacity to leave constraints of an object-centric practice. The design discourse is frequently about experience and events rather than about static image or printed text. So, okay, what if what if we design these situations as graphic designers, communication designers? What if we design these processes? And ultimately, can our viewers of our design be more affected and even involved in these design situations? That's my question. Because audience previously conceived as a viewer is now repositioned as a co-producer, participants. And here performance has power to engage viewers, invite them, welcome them to be part of design process. And that's happening through exchange, through creating new relations and opening dialogues. And I really believe and I hope that through that, as a method, it might lead to social change, be it small and local. That works. It may impact only few people. That works. So what do we mean by performativity? It's quite difficult term. So let's look at it just a little bit. By performativity in design, we mean active bodies. Of course, those can be people, but also virtual bodies as avatars or some other bodies. They need to make some actions, so they need to do things. But we also talk about chance. Anything can happen when you have participants. They have their own agenda. They want to do their own things. They are creative, right? So anything can happen. You have to embrace that field of potential with the change. Play is really important element for your imagination. You are steering that playfulness. And of course, experimentation with the design processes. And that's important for you as an author, for the designer. Everything that's happening, it's in special time and space. So this sort of performative design, performativity is unrepeatable. It's a very unique event. All that leads to transformation. So what is special? That this transformation is not visible on the facade. It's not visible during performance, but it's something that's happening inside you, inside your participants, inside the audience. Performative design is thus transformative practice. But how do you invite participants? I talk about participants, but it's not that easy to have a crowd coming and joining something like that. So how do you invite them? How do you feel them welcome? Because you really want to design a situation the way that you can co-create with others together and you can play with it. So you need to design some props and tools to invite people. That's why we design these sort of graphic scores. See them as scripts for possible modes of action. These scores, they bring more than a choreography. They instigate social process. They invite people to play with them. And graphic scores, they challenge the hierarchy between composer or designer, right, and the participant. So the hierarchy here is being shaken up. And that's why we have more horizontal, equal, and playful events. People can be creative in this. Your participants, they have their own agenda. Other tools are inspired by 70s projects from Lucy Lippert, and Lucy Lippert, she's a curator of conceptual art, and at that time she was really curious how to put these kind of recipes to make conceptual art, to make actions, to make performances by artists, by fine artists, how to make a catalog for this. So she published these amazing cards, kind of instruction cards. 5 years later, Brian Eno and Peter Schmitz, they created a set of cards called oblique strategy cards. And these are meant for artists who are stuck in their process, in their creative process. These cards, they serve you as some sort of kind of activation tool for yourself. You are motivated on your own to turn on the card and see whether your project can move on thanks to that card. And that was so inspiring for me. So that's why I thought immediately, yeah, this research on performative design, on performance, let's publish it in form of collectible cards. So you can collect them. And for me, it allows me to expand it. That's the way I can work with, right? So yeah, for now, there's 27 cards you can have. And for me, this set is really an inspiring tool, revealing possibilities of communication design towards action, towards performance. Well, to complicate it a bit more, there are quite some terms that I have collected so far that I would really love to have all cards about them. I have only few, as I said, 27, but there's more coming. Of course, when you do your research, it's an ongoing fascination. It really grows and evolves. So it's unstoppable and changeable throughout the time. So I would really like to talk about design as transformative, integrative, and critical design practice that embraces evenness. Term evenness is really important in performative design because it means time and space. And of course, chance, as I told you about. And performative design has really this power to involve viewers in a really nice way of being together. Yeah, for example, affordance, quite beautiful term for me, really like opening my eyes when I was a student at the time, and I heard, wow, affordance, this is coming from philosophy, but it's actually an invitation for action. Think about door. Door invites you to open them, right? You can just open the door and enter another space, enter another room, or leave a house or something. But door can have many other affordances. And this way, I started to think about design, about posters, about anything that I was about to design. Okay, what are these affordances? So yeah, that's all my fascinations. Let's continue. Another person, artist, amazing artist I'm inspired by, Ben Patterson. So this is 60s. And he was among a small group at the time called Fluxus, that includes artists like Lamonte Young, John Cage, or Yoko Ono. And they, together with Ben Patterson, they pushed performance to radical extremes. Ben Patterson himself was composer, musician, and bassist. And it's really less known that he helped found the Fluxus movement. It's not that much written. And yeah, why is that? Look at his performance scripts. In the middle, you can see some notation, and that's quite amazing how you can record performances, right? Isn't it incredible? So yeah, therefore, each performative design, we prepare kind of possible action schemes, and that's really inspired by Patterson's work. But how do you create this notation? How do you make this visual script for performance? You can try every time a bit differently, and that's exciting as well. Patterson, he took musical scripts and turned them into role play instructions. So he designed performative games and playgrounds. This game here, it's reperformed. So of course he created it in 60s, and now this was done, I think 5 years ago. We've learned from Patterson, and his practice literally led me to investigate and create various playgrounds. Those playgrounds could be very critical places. It doesn't mean when it's for adults, it's for culture institutions and for crowds that are really looking for arts and design. So it can be critical places. So these are spaces where the performance can happen. Inside, we listen to each other and let others to have a voice. So those are places for debate, for dialogue to happen. This one was called Unionize and has been conceived as a space to come together and discuss. It's designed for rethinking and reshaping culture norms and values within the group of participants. Our playgrounds are designed as spaces mapping and inviting the imaginary. We need to understand that the current capitalism, of course, thanks to that, I can also pay my rent, of course, but yeah, the current capitalism is defuturing species from their futures. And I say species because in the sake of togetherness, I also mean human and non-human together. That's why I say the species are being defutured from their futures, but also from their imagination of those futures. And I hope through design and through performance, we can claim it back through our imagination. So I hope these playgrounds, they can negotiate difference. We embrace collectivist production of future imagination. That's what I wanted to say. These playgrounds are hopefully safe spaces for experimentation, inclusion. But when you have that, there's also collision and friction happening. It's not easy when you put different people together in such a playground. There is collision and friction, but it's okay because it's a safe space where these things can happen, right? On the photo, you can see one of the uncertainty seminars, which is a series of community events expanding the concept of uncertainty as a critical tool. This one is happening in The Hague, here in Netherlands. And here's another one during Action. And this is at the Design Museum London. Participants can explore it as Situationist International. Again, I'm referring back to 60s. I don't know why today. But Situationists, they explored cities by their method called dérivé or dérive. Is a special method, and Guy Debord, one of the leading members of Situationists, he defines dérivé as a mode of experimental behavior linked to the conditions of urban society, a method of passage, an unplanned journey through the city, through urban landscape. So you see participating people right now at this moment here. But why is doing this together important? You might ask, why participation? Why is that? According to participatory art theorist Claire Bishop, participation is a key because it rehumanizes society fragmented by the repressive instrumentality of capitalist production. This is a great book. I can only recommend Artificial Health. If you are interested in participation art and its theories, go for it. It's a great perspective and very critical perspective towards the art of participation. So inviting people to participate is not, it shouldn't be a necessity for completion of our design. So they don't have to really complete the design. Here comes this critique of often really misused term, participatory design, right? You hear it a lot, participatory design, but what do you really mean? How do you work with people? Is it open? Do they have enough freedom to do their own kind of creative act within your design, or do you want to limit them? No, because where no other expression is accepted except the kind of precisely finished task, design task, that's not okay. So we don't do it this way, right? So you have to really think, what does it mean to make participatory projects? We intend to do it differently. So we don't use participants as kind of human resource. This is really the kind of the horrible way of misusing that kind of design. Huh? So be careful about these terms. It's different. Our approach is all about sharing and togetherness. And while you're very playful, you are free to be creative within that. It's a key moment right now to mention Augusto Boal and his concept of emancipated spect-actor. So it's not just a spectator, he called it spect-actor. It's an active acting spectator, and this is an amazing term. It's coming from the theater of oppressed. You can see it on the picture. This is 70s in Brazil. Of course, at the time, political regime, it wasn't okay. It was oppressive. People were disappearing. Yeah, and that is all inspired by amazing book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. So first you had the book Pedagogy of Oppressed and then the Theater of Oppressed. And these are special places for people to share things together, even though the political climate isn't working. But back to playgrounds. We hope to create most needed space to doubt together. We use performative design as means for creating and recreating these new relations between people. It's a tool for transformation that enrolls feeling, intellect, and imagination, as well as it is a tool for, I would say, education, or maybe I should say like deschooling in a way. It breaks the rules a bit. On this picture, you can see a playground called Map of Scattered Society. Its sister twin, the Map of Empathic Society, was exhibited just last year on the 5th Istanbul Biennale. If you look closer and you really come to that playground, the geometric forms and emoji inhabited places, they work as sort of vertigo to pull the viewer into this playground. Talking about playground and vertigo is quite nice to remember. When you were as kids, there was a lot of real vertigo kind of attractions in real playgrounds for kids. So this vertigo is now visual. It's just a feeling that I want to steer. In the Rodina, we believe in the importance of caring and playing in order for an empathic society to develop. These are just some details from the project that you can enjoy right now. These playgrounds are at the same time fictional maps. There is something very poetic about it. It's a geography of imaginary places. I'm trying to zoom in one of these parts. Yeah, this one is translated into Dutch. This carpet is called Voices, the map of voices, and it's currently exhibited at Van Abbe Museum. And it carries voices of influential female rebels, activists, and partisans who fight or were fighting for racial and non-binary equality. You can enter through pillars. On one side, there's Octavia Butler, the sci-fi writer, right? But also a present-day kind of hierarchies critique. And on the other side, you have Angela Davis, political activist, right? Angela Davis. And to the front, you can look at other ladies. Ernestine Convalius, Gloria Wekker is a Dutch Afro-Surinamese writer and professor of gender studies and sexuality. Philomena Esset, professor of critical race and gender. So you have all these ladies, these powerful characters gathering together on top of that carpet. It's very new and exciting for me because this show just opened last week. All these playgrounds steer imagination through collective exploration and play. So here you can see participants experiencing this dérivé. They travel through the landscape of this fictional map. Inside, you are becoming an explorer, the player, or flaneur in French, the mental traveler. This is inspired by Catherine Youssef and how she examines the earth under colonialism and slavery. She, you can see her book, she initiates a conversation between Black feminist theory, geography, and the various earth sciences. And she's addressing the politics of the anthropocene within the context of race, materiality, deep time, and geology. It's very rich mix, very difficult read, but I can only recommend. And what is great moment that she starts this book with the end of the world. And why not? This is a quote taken by master of contemporary fantasy, Nora Kate Jemisin. You might know that, but Jemison's 5th season, it's a fantasy series. So we breathlessly follow 3 super powerful female characters oppressed by the society in the fantasy world. It's an amazing story about different capacities and vulnerability of communities. But also our maps and these playgrounds are inspired by Donna Haraway's concept of multi-species, togetherness, and relationality. From her iconic book, Staying with the Trouble. She wishes to reconfigure, change our relations to Earth and all its inhabitants. cohabitation, togetherness. Okay. Second chapter is about dealing with design as living ecosystem, right? When we talk about cohabitation, it's coming right there with its rich relations and connections, of course. So how will future generations see our time? What will remain for future generations? What kind of world is the result of our work? What planet are we passing on to them? What will be left from all the beautiful images and seductive designs that we create? This is a future fossil. We see fossil as the remain of the age when humans irreversibly changed the geological setting of the planet. I talk about anthropocene, right? That's exactly the description of it. However, these are morphing bodies, hybrids between geological, technological, and biological bodies. I call them pickled humans. And while rendering all these fossils, we worked on publication that gathers fascinating knowledge. It contains essays about intersectional feminism, of course, ecology, Afrofuturism, forensic architecture, different alternatives to capitalism. So it's like amazing essays inside it. And we were desperate to activate this important knowledge locked inside the book. So how to make content accessible and attractive to people who don't typically read books? How to make it more inclusive? How to transform content into spatial experience? So the question is, so what if spreads of that book become walls and you can walk around them? What happens when the book becomes environment? I'll tell you, yeah, you can explore it as a player. That's what we did. Hereby is a top view of the main architecture of the central area of the book made in Unity. And it's a meta book because you can collect the book inside the book. And who collects the most books in this book game and has the highest score, then wins the real printed book. Which is a nice concept for a book launch. Just go and grab your books. So what you see is a non-violent, exploratory video game. Turning physical book into video game raises particular question. How can designers create virtual worlds as alternatives and proposals to the current world we live in? So it's a future wish. You are trying to propose something, right? You're thinking through making when you're building these worlds. Because tools, software, knowledge, and of course hardware for such world making are widely accessible, right? You can have that, you can use that knowledge, you can have that software right now. So why should they be left only for commercial purposes in hands of companies or entertaining industry, right? The game industry. No, artists and designers feel welcome. You can use these game engines and build virtual worlds. This should be our medium of expression. So through our imagination, we should sculpt and plan virtual worlds. We can create unstable surfaces that are in constant change in the movement, in time, in feeling. So this game world making is a powerful force in constructing our dreams and desires. Last year, when the COVID-19 locked us all in our homes, in the moment of extreme uncertainty and increasing isolation, we've been prototyping some tools for spending time together, for different form of like kind of distant, socially, for togetherness in virtual worlds. We did our first virtual performance then with many participatory elements. Together with Jessica Deira, we created a bidding event where users can buy virtual playgrounds. Practical questions through this. How can we move our playgrounds into the virtual world? How is performance inside virtual worlds relevant to us, to designers? How can we perform inside virtual worlds? How can we make visitors feel close together? Because it's unique. You are at home alone with your screen, but how can you steer this closeness? Because we were all looking for it. You remember last year how we were alone, everyone. So this project was called Labor, because it's my favorite topic of labor and free time and labor. So it means your free time is actually work. You have fun, but it's actually labor, while somebody else makes profits on that, on your work, on your fun. Shin Jung-kwon, South Korean scholar, he explores how play becomes hijacked by capitalist mode of production. He writes that transition from the industrial society to the information society takes a play form. So the play is really important. Gamification, right? All these modes of part of the capitalist production in a way of labor. In Labor exhibition, we are looking at how work and play are becoming merged through kind of boundary between play and labor is blurred, is dispersed. They are together somehow in one package. You can go online to this link that you can see, and you can explore our virtual playgrounds on your own. You can see that. So there was multiple different performances there, and we were also trying to inhabit virtual bodies and share our desires. And those were huge avatars you can see here. Because in the platform capitalism, in the age of self-performance on social media, and these days on never-ending conference calls and streaming platforms, we all perform what we do. It's us, ultimate workers. We live in the world of colors and hope, happily exploited, performing like mad. We pioneered the online performance in live multiplayer mode. So the multiplayer mode is quite special here, because we build it with custom code developed here in the studio. And by multiplayer, I literally mean it's up to 300 visitors at the same time, and they can use their avatars, they can chat to each other. So you can see these are all different people. It's a strange phenomena, because while creating these virtual spaces, we realize they are more inclusive, affordable, and accessible than some galleries, theaters, or schools. Because you can, let's say, there's no need to be physically in one place. You can explore these virtual environments, these playgrounds, by means of free play. You need internet connection, but you can do it through any device. You can be also on your smartphone. So yeah, you don't have to travel for that. That's why I find it more inclusive and affordable. Since 2020, we designed and programmed 9 different large virtual multiplayer environments, or sort of ecosystems, for different culture events. But okay, thinking about game environments, let's look outside. Let's get involved in the matter of the physical world by asking how to use design to reveal rather than hide. I mean, as graphic designers, we are often trained to cut things out, cut those complex contents out, and make a simple, visible, impactful message, right? But what if we embrace and unwrap this complexity, right? One day, we looked at planet surface through the gaze of the satellite. And we combine this imagery with what is underground, right? So you have this image from the top of the ground, right? The satellite, and then something that's inside the earth itself, something that's hidden to our eyes. And those are infrastructures, huge mega infrastructures and maps of heavy industries, the underground mines and quarries, and they have a lot to tell. There is a whole story. And my question would be, has capitalism made Earth, our planet, a purely economic resource? Is that true? So question was there for this research, where exactly is mining happening? Where do we mine for our resources? Who profits and who doesn't have a voice in carbon extractivities? So we identified several extraction locations of different chemical and rare earth elements, like, for example, neodymium, lithium, titanium, yttrium, palladium, but also some more basic ones as copper and gold, because all of these elements, they have something in common. We wrote an essay about massive resource extraction behind design surfaces. By that, I mean that everything we use, our displays, our smartphones, all our devices, they need these rare earth metals. So for us designers to be able to design, we actually use all of these special things taken violently from the ground. And awareness is not enough, right? It's not enough. So almost everything that surrounds us has been carefully crafted and innovated and shaped by us, designers. Design theorist Alice Twemlow, she talks about the visibility and measurability and also direct impact of the damage by design that puts us and the planet into direct danger. Byproducts and even values that we might share. Let's name one, our lifestyles. That's it. So Twemlow, she writes, the damage being done to our planet by the products, processes, and values generated by design is increasingly visible and measurable. And she is right. Specifically in this design and in that essay, we problematize the old conception of norms such as binary or patriarchy, because binaries, they cut through rather than connect. It's never male or female, it's never human versus the planet. That's nonsensical. We are together in this. That's why I call the lecture Togetherness. We are together. We care for intersectional equality. Come on. We are together. And what I want to say, that it's precious because we are on board one particular and very unique spaceship called Earth, and it's only one there, one of a kind. Talking about togetherness, we care for multi-species as we are our own example here, because we know for long our bodies, we are not alone, never alone, because we are vessels of interconnected organisms. We are earthlings interwoven with microbes. We are elementally knotted with bacteria. So here I am following Donna Haraway's concept of togetherness and relationality, right? To visually support this narrative of the essay, we created geoponchos, so geological ponchos, and these are costumes for role play. Through geoponcho, human body connects to the planetary body, talking about human and non-human. But the question is, how do you activate this? How to activate it? Of course, some methods I've learned from the earlier performance artists, and here it's an amazing example of work of Marta Araújo from Brazil. She was performer and activist, and she pioneered the power of poncho in 80s. She did so many different exercises and performances, and this poncho is also becoming space where more people than one can wear this, which is amazing and beautiful moment in her work. So ponchos are powerful tools, as the one who wears them can become something else through the means of role play. So You can become the other. It's a becoming. You can become. That's important. Accompanying this essay, which is called Accidental Geopoetics, this performative design intervention happened in the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam. And the whole museum, which is a big building, it became a stage where participants wearing those geoponchos could kind of blend the reality, their real selves, together with their imaginary others. And they became part of the ground. They literally became all those locations where the mining and earth exploitation is happening. This extractivism is happening. So remember, performance transforms viewer, the participant, and also you, designer. Performative design brings other values than monetary. It's not about money, because it brings beautiful, amazing values like understanding, sharing, joy, collective memory. This togetherness in collective memories is beautiful, and all sorts of feelings and emotions. Well, in this particular project, in the geopoetics, all these performing bodies, these performers, these amazing human beings, they truly became stones and chemicals, and they felt deeply entangled with what they imagined the earth is feeling right now. But of course, every performance has its flow, so it takes. Here we were performing for about 4.5 hours. So it really takes time until you get that feeling, this role play, this becoming other. And when you really feel that you kind of unfeel yourself and you're suddenly somebody, something else. Enough about performative design. My final message for you is use your designs to make stories, to touch people in a way that cannot be measured and cannot be monetized upon. Let's aim for complexities, for collective storytelling. And yes, it's a challenge right now to talk about utopic future. You might say, okay, Tereza, what are you saying? You talk about playfulness, imagination, and this utopic kind of thing. When so many people are actually suffering and struggling for life, so it might seem a bit outside of the topic, right, to talk about playfulness in these days in pandemic, which is still impacting huge part of humankind. Or we have so many precarious workers, we have oppressive political regimes, we have so many wars going on still. There are people in different power grips and so on and so on. So yet this situation allows us to critically reflect on the current experience. And I really want us to then work, and because we can listen to this lecture, we can be together now. For me, this evening, for you, your afternoon, we can be together. So let's use our privilege to work for the change, to do that change. Let's use our talents to do that change, because others, they might not have those chances as we have. So let's work together to make it. Amplify what really matters. Do your projects, work hard, and go for it. Really change yourself, transform yourself, and transform others. Activate the positive change. Please do it. So I would like us to consider how such lessons might influence our lives and design activities moving forwards, and open this discussion. You might have wrote quite some questions into the chat or into the app, so let's read them. And my question to you would be, what do you really want to do as designer? Where does your responsibility lie? Thank you so much. Thanks, California College of Arts, and the whole MFA design, and everyone who is listening tonight or your afternoon. Sarah, yeah, go for it. I will switch it off and stop sharing.
Okay. Thank you so much. What a totally incredible lecture that brought us through huge planetary issues, and also just like being in a space and being playful together. And I love how many scales that we got to see working together. So I'll kick off the questions, but there is a Q&A button here. So I'll also act as moderator, and any questions put in there, I'll vocalize. So please add questions, but I'll kick it off. So I think this question of how to build imagination is so vital, and in your talking both about the kind of dampening of our imagination that capital has created, the lack of future, like very literally, but also in our imagination of it, and beyond the monetizable, beyond our lifespan, beyond how to imagine beyond these immediacies. And so I'm wondering if you can say how you feel when you're working, what the role of communication design is, that what communication design can uniquely add to these kinds of planetary conversations and challenges that are so outscaled. And I think the kind of the work that's been done to make them beyond our own capacity to engage or to have effect makes it very hard to figure out how to engage, right? I mean, maybe very intentionally. And I'm just wondering, there's so much you've pointed to in arts and in literature and in philosophy of what those professions can add, and what do you think our unique skills are in adding to these conversations?
Thanks, Sarah. This is a great question. Definitely. So what can we add as designers beyond our capacity in a way, or how to engage, and not just ourselves, but through our skills, we can also engage others in welcoming way, right? In democratic way. So I think this imagination is amazing. When you're creative, you have your imagination, but how to work with it. And for designers, this ultimate challenge is like how to visually translate things. So I think we should train our skills in like kind of building this imagination, building visually these like different proposals of imaginary futures. Like, go for it. Like for me, it might help to read a book of a sci-fi or even a fantasy. I talked about Jemison's book, right? So there's so much to go for your imagination, but the visual translation is a key factor. And through imagination, I really believe that we are somehow inserting that idea of potential future. Right? So it's not just a speculation, it's a wish. And I hope for those wishes to become true. But of course, in reality, just the most helpful part would be to work with different communities, be part of them, right? Not just like kind of be outside, be part of them, and do whatever you can as designers. So there might be different types of help needed. Somebody needs a flyer, somebody needs a website, right? There's so many important things to share. So working with others, that's very special about designers' abilities, that you can communicate what others maybe might find difficult. So find your community and work together with them, help them, be part of them, be part of it. And I believe we can go through it, we can do it. Yeah, there's no other way. I'm not giving up. You are not giving up. We should just continue.
Wonderful. Yes, plenty of work to do. So I love that. And I love thinking about these as wishes. I mean, what a wonderful way to think about your work, as kind of putting wishes out and seeing what comes of them. So we have a question from the audience. This was an amazing lecture. Thank you. I don't want to get too into technical programs too deeply, but how do you think designers who primarily work in 2D start to think about engaging with the audience in a performative or interactive way?
How? Yeah, definitely there is a lot of 2D to do as well. I showed you all these ponchos and tokens. So there is a lot of exciting things you can still materialize, you can touch as designer, and you can definitely design them in your favorite way in Illustrator, in Design, Photoshop. So you don't have to give away your favorite creative clouds. But yeah, then you're working with people. So that's something completely else. That's like very, very special because it's sensitive. You're building relations, you're building trust, you're together in it with them. It's never you separate and them, like designer and the audience. It's always you together. And what's special about it, you have to try to work with time, this event, to get together. You have limited time. So what's the most challenging and difficult about designing a performance, in a way, doing this performative design, is when you start and when you end, how is that limited? How do you start properly that people understand this is beginning of something, and how do you end? Either you wish for some specific result, or you keep it open, you have this chance, anything can happen, but how do you also finish the way that people know, oh, this has just ended? And I think this timing and working with time is quite special. Maybe people who work more with the video, animation and all these things, they understand that this is the timeline, and things happen between it. So that's maybe one of the limits and quite exciting things to look at.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I like how you were also talking about graphic scores and other ways that graphics become a way of thinking through those types of questions of time and chance and possibility and participants and kind of multiple bodies and all of that. We have time for one or two more questions if anyone else wants to put them in the chat. Otherwise I will just keep asking questions.
Go for it. But anyone can write it in the chat. It's a very safe way.
Yeah, that's all. They can also put it in the chat. Well, I'll ask another question that kind of builds on that one, because I think another aspect of the that wove through so many of these different formats was of play. And I love this acknowledgement of play and labor and the kind of confusion that's been made in terms of kind of our attention and our and how we play and how that's used as labor. But I think this question of play in terms of this idea of potentiality and performance is also really interesting. And so I'm wondering if those are, do you think of those the same, like this kind of play of performance and the playfulness within your graphics and the playfulness of like you and an environment or you and the page? And, you know, what is the role of play, I guess, for yourself personally in your work?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. That's a first of a kind. I have all sorts of questions. This one is new. This is great. I love it. I think the play is super important for me. Is this all this excitement? And I don't mean it's childish. It's not. The play is really means for fantasizing, means for your kind of inner transformation. But the role of play shouldn't be really underestimated, right? It's quite important for creation, for creating things. You have to have this kind of curiousness, and to be curious, it's kind of, it brings and builds on the playfulness as well. But there are different things, because play, you might think, okay, you're playing, you are performing, that's one of a kind. But then another would be this kind of playful visual that you were asking about. And I think those are two separate areas in the Rodina, in the studio work. the kind of vivid visual or rich, luring visual that looks almost like some sort of candy that you want to look at should grab your attention as a viewer. And it might look kind of nice or beautiful or interesting or full of colors, a kind of this happy world full of colors, but actually under the surface there is bitterness. It's critical. It talks about all different struggles that we have. So for me, it's a metaphor of this kind of candy. It's sweet on the surface, but inside, sometimes some candies, they are sour inside. Yeah? So you have it, you enjoy it, and then suddenly, oh, the core is quite sour, and do we like it? Yeah, we like it, we love it, and this is the way how we express ourselves. So yeah, this is the bitter candy. So role of play shouldn't be ever estimated.
Okay, we have one more question. I love that answer so much, and I love the kind of like the lore of these hard topics, you know, with the that draw you in.
But look, because if you would do it differently, and if you would just directly communicate the content of the research, for example, like, no, there's so many words, it's difficult to read, it's actually not talking about very positive things. So let's do it differently. Let's invite people first, and then when you have their attention, then you insert the reality of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really using also those same tools you were talking about, not simplifying, but using communication and using these different kind of like the expression of all of the visuals and material. Okay, so here's one building on that. Speaking of curiousness, do you find yourself ever feeling stuck through your process, or does your practice feel constantly fruitful?
That's a good question. So I think when I most feel stuck is in the beginning of every project. It's so hard to have new beginnings all the time. So this kind of, I'm almost scared of it, but I always have to overcome, is this when you open your favorite software and it's blank, there's nothing, right? Okay, in 3D softwares itself, there's always a cube or something. So you open your 3D software, there is a cube already. So somebody put that cube inside. But if you open Illustrator, I'm the Illustrator person, there's nothing. And that's the most scariest moment for a designer. How do you start? Yeah. Do you start typing in the title of something, or do you sketch? Do you put color? Or how do you do this first touch, first step? And this is the moment. Huh? This is it. And you have to overcome this and go for it and continue and don't stop. Use different softwares, different mediums, and don't stop until you think, oh, now nobody will know how I actually made it because I used so many different things in it. It's a special recipe. Yeah. So this is this kind of mimicking different things, or like overlaying, layering different things together. I think that's one of the methods, I would say. So yeah, but this is a scary place to open your software and you find nothing.
It's important to remember that that's always just as scary, but the memory of getting to the other side of it helps, right? That you're like, well, I just start putting things on the page.
Just continue, you can make it.
Excellent. Well, that feels like a really good piece of advice to end with. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much. And so you brought us to a lot of different spaces, and we'll share out the video with everybody soon. And you're welcome back and welcome to hang out with us in California, of course, anytime. And it's been so lovely spending the afternoon.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day and hopefully see you soon.